Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Saturday race of the day. It is the Grade 3 Bryan Station going the 1 mile distance for the 3-year-olds on turf at Keeneland. And an interesting field signed on here. We've got oversubscribed 12 runners in the main body of the field, several also eligible. We did see an also eligible win a Keeneland graded stakes at a big price in the Raven Run last week. So maybe we should give a mention to the number 13 in this race, Day and Age. But he would need a scratch to draw in here. And Mike, among the 12 that are entered in the main body, it's a pretty strong field for a grade 3. You've got horses coming in from a number of different directions.
Yeah, it's true. There's just a lot going on in here. And it does kind of feel like the race, especially because it's such a big field without a real standout on paper. It just feels like trips are going to be super important in here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the morning line for the first time, and I don't blame the line maker for making a 9-2 morning line favorite in this race with the number 9 Jocoso, because it does seem fairly wide open. I'm not exactly sure who's going to take money in this race. It definitely feels like the sort of race where if you want to do a little bit of price shopping, you might be able to find some value. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Bryan Station. And Mike, I don't see a ton of horses in here that need to be on the lead to have their best chance. I do suppose some of those horses that are stretching out in distance from the Franklin Simpson, where they went 6.5 at Kentucky Downs, they'll probably be able to get forward in this race, especially having drawn inside post positions. But I didn't think they'd be flying up front early.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, I guess we'll see because it's such a big field and you do have a few stretch outs. So maybe things will get a little bit bunched up front in here. We'll see what happens. Golden Afternoon certainly could be forward. I thought that for Troubleshooting, who's, stretching out for the first time in his career here, I thought he was pretty likely to be up there. But I did think this pace was kind of tough to sort out.
Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1 Macero. And as we start to go through these runners, if you do want to handicap along with Mike and I, you can take advantage of those free PPs that are available on DRF.com for this and every single DRF race of the day. Mike, this horse is 20-1 on the morning line. He is coming off a closing third place finish in an allowance race at Churchill Downs last time, where they put the blinkers on for the first time. And it looked like he was getting a little keen in the early stages. Wasn't easy to settle in that race. Did produce a finish. And that's kind of his calling card. He's a horse who wants some pace to close into and will finish well when he gets it.
Yeah, that's true. And I really don't think he got it last time either. The horses that ran 1-2 in there were just right up front the entire way. This horse was last early. Mm-hmm. And I thought he put in a decent late run in that race. I don't know that he's, one of those horses who I look at in here, David, and think, he's going to win this race. But I don't think he's overmatched by these horses, especially if he can get some pace to close into it. He's got a great post here to save a little bit of ground. At a big price, I'm going to try to use him somewhere, maybe not on top.
The number 2 Golden Afternoon finished second in that Franklin Simpson that a few of these horses are exiting at Kentucky Downs. And Mike, he's a horse who felt like he really improved when they turned him back in distance. They did so 2 back at a stakes at Presque Isle Downs. They stuck with sprinting, just switching to turf last time in the Franklin Simpson. He ran well to be second, but I've got to say, going back to some of his prior races around 2 turns, I'm not so optimistic that he's going to be able to transfer that form out to the longer distance.
That's my takeaway with him as well. I don't have anything to add to that analysis, David. To me, he's a horse who is better going shorter. He improved when they turned him back to sprint, and I do not want them stretching him back out for this race.
We've got some more horses stretching out from that Franklin Simpson. Up next, the number 3 Antisocial. He was 4th in that grade 1 event at Kentucky Downs, was running on at the end through some traffic, finished decently. He is a horse who has shown that he's just fine going the 1 mile distance. He ran well to be 3rd in the grade 2 Secretariat at Colonial 2 back. He was on top of a relatively moderate pace that day and still wasn't able to forge past the leaders, but it does feel like he is a horse who is on an upward trajectory still on the way into this.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at him. I don't know. You're right. He didn't really have an excuse in the Secretariat. He wasn't, it wasn't a terrible performance, but it wasn't a great one. I guess I don't care about the Kentucky Downs race last time. I just think so far, David, his turf form is just, it's okay. He hasn't done anything that really thrills me. At a big price, I'm not going to knock him, but I'm probably also not using him.
Number 4, Troubleshooting, was the winner of that grade 1 Franklin Simpson that the 2 horses we just talked about are exiting. And we'll take a look at the stretch run of that race as he's beating Golden Afternoon. They're the 2 horses that are highlighted in this replay. And Mike, I thought the trips worked out really well for both of these horses. Troubleshooting, you could see he's angling out 4 wide here, but he was able to save some ground around the turn prior to this, and he seemed just fine handling an extra furlong. He is a horse who had been concentrating on 5.5 furlong turf sprints through the summer at Ellis Park, got the added distance here, but now they're asking him to stretch out to a mile, and I think this is a pretty tough stretch out in distance for a horse who was really campaigned as such a confirmed turf sprinter early on in his career.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess the positives are he obviously fits on figures, and he has shown that kind of tactical speed. I mean, the race we just watched, he just got a perfect trip to win the Grade 1. Perfect trip when he won the Ellis Park race, the stakes race 3 starts back. So he's got that kind of tactical style that maybe will allow him to get the mile. He's 6-1 on the morning line in this race. No, thank you.
Number 5, Final Gambit, is a horse who's actually turning back in distance for this race, unlike some others that are stretching out. He went farther than this, 2.5 furlongs farther in the Nashville Derby last time. And Mike, it was a typical Final Gambit performance where he was slow out of the gate. He was outrun early. He loomed up in mid-stretch like he might be able to do something, kind of hung at the end. He left you feeling like maybe there was more in the tank than he really gave on the racetrack. So he's a frustrating horse to watch. He must be a frustrating horse to have in the barn because you know there's talent. It's just tough to get the best performances out of him. Maybe turning back into a mile where a race where there could be more pace for him will be beneficial, but I don't know if I like him going quite this short.
I don't know if I do either. Yeah, listen, a fast-paced race, maybe no matter the distance, is what he really wants, and they're just really hard to come by, especially on the grass. Listen, this is a horse who early on, I was waiting for them to come back to turf with him, which they finally did in the summer, and if I'm being honest, I'm not thrilled with the results that I've gotten from him. He's not for me in this race. I do know that there's talent in there somewhere, though.
Up next is the number 6, Dream On, another horse coming out of that Grade 1 Franklin Simpson at Kentucky Downs. And I should mention another horse that is sired by Not This Time. And maybe this race should be sponsored by Not This Time, because I don't know if you noticed this, Mike, but 7 of the 12 runners in the main body of this field are by Not This Time. So really has a dominance in this race, likely to win it. We'll see with which one. But Dream On, a horse who has shown good versatility with regard to distance. They did try to cut him back in that Franklin Simpson. And I thought in some ways he had the toughest trip of all because he got badly shuffled back in the early stages of that race. He doesn't need to be nearly as far back as he was there. And he was sort of running on belatedly at the end. I do think he's better going a mile. And I thought he ran better than it looks too back in the Secretariat, where he was never inside, tried to make this 4-wide move on the far turn. That was a race that was won by a horse who just snuck up the rail. So I do think he's in better form than it looks on paper.
I agree. I have such mixed feelings about this horse, David, because you're right. I mean, his race last time, I don't like the trip he got. The race 2 back when he finished behind 3 of these horses, I don't like the trip that he got. And then the flip side of that is he's got 2 stakes wins prior to that, and I hated the Woodhaven as a race overall, and I hated the Penn Mile as a race overall over a yielding course where, you know, his main rival or his stablemate, the 3 to 5 shot Mibago, was a total no-show. And his form has totally dissipated since then. And 2 sprinters ran second and third to him in there. So I don't like his 2 wins, but I do like his 2 recent losses. He's a tough call for me.
The number 7, Game Warrior, another horse who's going to be turning back in distance for this race. He tried going 11 furlongs in the Jockey Club Derby last time at Aqueduct. Mike, aside from, the winner of that race, who I think could pan out to be okay, I didn't love the quality of that field last time, so I think he's going to be facing tougher here. And I can't say that his form in California prior to that gets me too excited.
Yeah, I didn't like his form in California either. And that's one of the reasons I didn't like him when they shipped him to New York last time. I don't know. He's another one. He's turning all the way back in distance, and maybe that's what he really wants to do, David. But I thought his form overall is just hard to get behind.
The number 8, Tenacious Leader, another horse by that sire, Not This Time in this race. And Mike, this one showed some talent during his 2-year-old season. He just barely lost in the With Anticipation when he first got on turf to Zulu Kingdom, who I imagine has gone to the sideline since then because he's a horse you would have expected to see in a race like this. But to run as well as he did as a 2-year-old against that formidable foe shows that he does have talent on the turf. And he didn't get back on the grass until this race that we'll take a look at when he returned from a long layoff, having been off for over a year at Keeneland last time, and he beat a field of older horses, did well to hold on at the end over a runner who I think is pretty talented, Montador, who lunges at Tenacious Leader in the late stages. And Mike, I suppose this could be a building block for his step forward into stakes company here.
I agree. I mean, to me, he was the toughest call in the race because I do think he fits really, really well here, and he's just so unexposed at this point. Overall in this race here, it's first off the layoff. It's a pretty long layoff too. He got a really good trip in that race, but it's not like, once they put him right up on the pace there, with the horse that finished third. It's not like they just sort of strolled, because a bunch of horses made early moves in that race on the far turn and really forced everybody to pick up. And this horse actually had to run probably for a good 5/16 of a mile in there. And he did so pretty determinedly. I think this horse is pretty good.
Definitely doesn't hurt to have John Velasquez aboard in graded stakes lately. He's been having a very strong fall wherever he rides. Completing the septet of Not This Time progeny is the number 9, Jocoso, a horse who has been in very good form recently. He upset the Secretariat 2-back, but as I said earlier, got a really good trip, just sneaking up the rail, saving all the ground in that race, and then came back in the gun runner last time at Kentucky Downs, Mike. And I would argue that maybe he moved a little earlier than was necessary, because that was an honest pace that was coming apart at the end, and he struck the front with about a quarter mile to go and just couldn't quite hold it together late.
Yeah, agreed. I think you could argue he ran the best race last time, even though he didn't win. And it's just another really solid performance from this horse. He's just good. They've tried a lot of different things with him, and he's acquitted himself pretty well doing all of it. But he's a turf horse. He's best as a turf horse. He did, you go back to the Secretariat 2-back. He got a perfect trip to win that race, but he won it pretty convincingly still. And I thought he was best last time too. He's just really logical in here. It's your call, what kind of price you want to take on him.
The number 10, Simulate, you might argue, has been a little disappointing since he stepped up to graded stakes company, because he was the beaten favorite in that Secretariat and then was off the board last time when they stretched him out in the Nashville Derby at Kentucky Downs. I will say, though, Mike, I thought he ran well in defeat in the Secretariat, because there wasn't a strong pace ahead of him that day. He made the strongest run from the back of the pack to get up into second. And then last time at Kentucky Downs, I know that you're, like me, are never willing to hold a Kentucky Downs performance against a horse too much. And also just the kind of horse that Simulate is, he's not the biggest colt, and he's got a really long stride on him for his frame, and those kinds of horses just don't always extend themselves over that kind of turf course at Kentucky Downs, where you're going up and down, can't necessarily always get into your rhythm. So that would have just been the wrong kind of race for Simulate, and I think getting into a spot like this, he could find better success.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Again, I don't care about the Kentucky Downs race anyway, but go back, anybody who wants to sort of maybe get an idea of what David's talking about, go back and watch his 2 races prior to that. I'm with you 100% on the Secretariat. I understand what Junior was doing there. He waited and waited and waited until all the way till they got to the top of the stretch before he took him into the clear to run. And it was too late, but he finished pretty well in there. But go back and watch the Saratoga race in particular, and you'll see he got a great trip in that race, but you'll see him when he gets in the clear really reaching for ground at the end of that race. This horse can run. I like him turning back, and I like him getting back to a conventional turf course here.
And it's not like he was beating nobody in that Saratoga allowance win, because the horse who was third is the next one we'll talk about, the number 11 Plensa, who came out of that allowance race to win the near $2 million gun runner at Kentucky Downs. We'll take a look at the replay of that race where he runs down Jocoso, who we just talked about. Now, Mike, I think we agree that Jocoso probably ran the best race this day. He is the horse that is highlighted second here, on the lead, taking over early. Plensa is going to make the last move to run him down at the very end. Both of these horses were able to save ground early, but Plensa obviously doing it from towards the back of the pack, and the pace of this race really worked in his favor. He's obviously an improving horse for a dangerous trainer in Rusty Arnold. Just not sure he's going to get the same setup here.
Yeah, that's just, one of the reasons that I downgraded him. And it's not like I'm way against this horse. I do like the way he's progressing for a really nice trainer. I think there's some talent in there. I won't be surprised when he runs well right back. But if he's one of the horses, there's just a bunch of horses that the morning line maker made the same price basically. Mm-hmm. And if he's one of those horses that really does take money, I'd probably side with some of the others.
Rounding up the field among the main body on the outside is the number 12 Salamis, a horse who is just coming off a maiden win when he tried stakes company in the Gio Ponte 2-back, but he had been impressive breaking his maiden and even more impressive in this stakes victory at Aqueduct that we'll take a look at here. Now, he did get a good trip and some pace ahead of him, but you really had to like the kick that this horse puts in from the quarter mile pole all the way to the wire. And there was another horse that was closing after him here, Capitol Hill, but once Salamis strikes the front, he's able to hold that horse at bay pretty easily. Capitol Hill is a talented horse in his own right, so it's not like there was nothing behind him in this Gio Ponte. Just wonder what kind of trip this horse is going to work out, Mike, now that he's drawn outside in post 12.
Yeah, it could be a big disadvantage for him. We'll see how much it affects him. I suspect that if he had, more of an inside post, that I'd probably have him even higher in my picks. I think he's good, David. I like all 4 of his races, in particular the last 2, where it feels like he's really started putting everything together. I guess post 12 could hold some people back here, but I have no idea why the horse drawn right to his inside is a shorter price than this horse on the morning line. I have no idea why he's the same price as Troubleshooting on the morning line for this race. I don't know. In a lot of ways, I feel like he's the horse to beat.
And then, Mike, we should quickly mention the first also eligible, Day and Age. He is the horse who defeated Macero in their last start at Churchill Downs. I suppose if he gets in, he could be a pace player.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets in. He's another one who's going to have a tough post to deal with if he gets in here, but his overall form is fine.
Let's go to our picks for this Grade 3 Bryan Station. And Mike, I think we're going to land on the same horse here, Simulate. It sounds like we view his recent form the same way, and he's probably turning back to a distance that will work better for him.
Yeah, I think we just look at him the same way. I think this is a really good spot for him. I think you're supposed to be a little lenient for the most recent start there at Kentucky Downs, and you might even get a fair price on him this time, David. I don't know. If he's even close to the morning line in this race, I want to bet this horse on Saturday. I threw a long shot in there for second, just hoping he gets a trip and makes a little bit of run. I think he's a little underrated, and just the fact that Salamis has post 12 just sort of allowed me to move him down a little bit. But again, I kind of feel like he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, we both got long shots picked second in this race, and depending on what price Simulate is, we'll see how much money he takes on the rider switch to Irad Ortiz here. Maybe the long shots are the right horses to use in here. I've got the number 6, Dream On, second, a horse who I think has run better than it looks in his last couple of starts and might be able to work out a better trip here. So 10-1-12-9 for Mike and 10-6-12-9 for me in the DRF Saturday race of the day at the Grade 3 Bryan Station at Keeneland. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.